Welcome to my views and news. Differences, disagreements, dispute between TPLF's top leaders are being reported by international media, while Tigray leaders are trying to create consensus for the formation of interim government. Not only are there differences between Tigray regional government and Ethiopian federal government, but also within TPLF. Washington Post has published an article claiming there is difference of opinion, which can be called a disagreement as well between two top TPLF leaders. Washington Post has published this article a few hours ago. The article states the ongoing controversy in detail regarding formation of interim government in Tigray. We know, viewers, that Pretoria Agreement clearly states that in Tigray an interim government will be formed. Though Tigray held regional election before November 2020 war, but that election was rejected by Ethiopian parliament, Ethiopian government. And in Pretoria Agreement, TPLF agreed to holding of new election. That is why interim government is going to be put in place in Tigray. It is urgent. Why? Because the federal government is not releasing any funds for Tigray. Federal government will only release funds for Tigray after there is interim government put in place in Tigray. And secondly, federal government has not lifted the ban on TPLF. Ban will be lifted when interim government will be formed. That is why these two things are very important. That interim government must be formed as soon as possible in Tigray. We know that Tigray government formed a 9-member committee headed by Getachew Reda to create consensus for the formation of interim government. Opposition rejected the committee. Then 2-day-long conference was held in Mekelle, Tigray's capital. A formula was shared within the stakeholders, among the stakeholders for the formation of interim government, and opposition again boycotted 2-day-long meetings in Mekelle, and then reportedly TPLF's top delegation arrived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital, where talks were held between Ethiopian federal government leaders and Tigray regional government leaders, mainly TPLF and some Tigray military commanders too. Now, Washington Post is reporting that Getachew Reda, Tigray presidential spokesperson, he is spokesperson of Tigray President Debretsion Gebremichael. Getachew Reda is not supporting Debretsion Gebremichael. While we are hearing that Debretsion is being prepared for the role of president of Tigray interim government, most sources reported that Tigray military commanders, TPLF, they agreed to nominate Debretsion Gebremichael for interim government president. But Washington Post now states that Getachew Reda is against Debretsion Gebremichael. What does Getachew Reda want? Does he want to replace Debretsion Gebremichael, or is he supportive of Sadkan Gebretensai, Tigray's top general? It's not clear. But both are potential presidents of the region in interim government setup. Both Sadkan and Getachew. Both are runners in the race for president reportedly. Sadkan was nominated for the vice president slot by Global Society of Tigray Scholars and Professionals, a diaspora Tigrayans body. Getachew has remained largely silent in the past 2 weeks. Since the start of efforts for the formation of interim government, he only tweeted once. And he said that federal government would be consulted. It would be taken on board for formation of interim government. That is what Pretoria Agreement states. There won't be any interim government established in Tigray without consultation with Ethiopian federal government. So it seems that Getachew has some backing or support from federal government. By the way, Satkan's position is very close to Getachew's position. Are Satkan and Getachew in alliance? And they want to remove Debretsion Gebremichael. It's not clear, but now Debretsion is facing opposition in Tigray. The question is, if Getachew replaces Debretsion, what difference would it make? Nothing, I think. Both are top TPLF leaders. Satkan has popularity in Tigray, though he is the one who led this war. From day one, he was leading this war. He was projected as the top general in Africa by Alex Devol and others. No one is holding Satkan accountable. No one is holding TPLF accountable. No one is holding PM Abiy accountable. Both the parties, leaders from both sides, they should be held accountable, obviously, for the start of war. But Satkan is more popular in Tigray now these days. Why? Because he is calling for some transparent process for the formation of interim government. Opposition parties are also supporting Satkan's position. Satkan published a detailed article a few days ago, and he shared in detail his plan for the formation of interim government and holding of free, fair election in Tigray, though that plan is not being considered by TPLF. So clearly, we are now seeing splits in Tigray People Liberation Front. Question is, how deep are these splits? Now, what happened in Addis Ababa when TPLF leaders went there? What does federal government want? PM Abiy's government has rejected the formula being proposed by Tigray leaders for the formation of interim government. Some names have been rejected, some names are being included by federal government of Ethiopia reportedly. I did a video 2 days ago. I said that PM Abiy wanted services of Debretsion, Satkan, Getachew at central level. That could be a way of removing some of them, not all of them, because sometimes, if you remember, some generals were appointed as ambassadors by Ethiopian government last year, and Bacha Dable was one of them, and another one. The purpose was to remove them from ENDF. The same could happen here as well, that federal government might try to remove those from Tigray who are troublemakers for the federal government, who federal government sees as troublemakers, who could lead another resistance, another escalation against federal government. Whatever the reason is, but federal government is not approving the formula, the understanding reached among Tigray stakeholders for the formation of interim government. Obviously, all Tigray stakeholders are not backing the formula. Opposition parties are out of the entire process. So what does it mean? What is next? I think Blinken's visit is very crucial. TPLF is now looking towards African Union, towards US. That African Union, US should play a role in putting pressure upon PM Abiy's government. PM Abiy's government should give free hand to TPLF for formation of interim government. But TPLF is in a difficult position. Why? Because Tigray's all three opposition parties are rejecting TPLF's unilateral efforts for the formation of interim government. it will be difficult for the US to support TPLF's position about the formation of interim government. Antony Blinken is due to arrive in Ethiopia tomorrow on Wednesday. I think his visit is crucial. PM Abiy's government is badly in need of financial aid, direct aid, loans, grants, because birr value declining, foreign exchange reserves dwindling, and US has a key role to play in coming days in Tigray, in Ethiopia, in the formation of interim government. Now TPLF is looking towards US. Let's see what Blinken does. But Washington Post story has not been rejected by Getachew Reda Debretsion. Getachew is quick to respond to such stories by international media. If he is supporting Debretsion, he should reject the story in a tweet. I have not seen that so far. Debretsion is silent too. And American news sources, they are close to TPLF diaspora. I think they are getting the right information. But still, we'll have to wait and see. Only thing which can be said for sure is that TPLF is facing internal split. Split is not to the extent of formation of new submitter factions, but leaders are at the loggerheads, it seems. Thank you for watching.